Imagine a cold March night.
Five friends, all familiar faces in their small community, leave a college basketball game. They're on their way home, a routine drive they've made countless times. But tonight, something shifts.
They don't arrive. Their families grow concerned, then desperate.
Days later, a chilling discovery is made: their car, abandoned deep in the snowy, unforgiving mountains. What started as a simple outing quickly spirals into one of America's most perplexing unsolved mysteries.
This is the story of the Yuba County Five. It was March 18, 1978.
Gary Mathias, Jack Hewitt, Bill Sterling, Jack Madruga, and Theodore Ted Whiter had spent the evening watching a Special Olympics basketball game at California State University, Chico.
These five men, aged between 24 and 32, were known around their hometowns of Yuba City and Marysville.
They were developmentally disabled, meaning they faced certain cognitive challenges, but they were largely independent, held jobs, and were well integrated into their communities. This wasn't a group prone to reckless behavior or disappearing acts.
Let's get to know the men.
Gary Mathias, 25, a Vietnam veteran who suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, but his family said he was stable. Jack Madruga, 30, a careful driver who rarely ventured far from familiar routes. Bill Sterling, 29, known for his friendliness and love of conversation.
Jack Hewitt, 26, quiet and good-natured. And Theodore Whiter, 32, who was described as gentle and shy.
They lived together in a group home, supported by the state, and often spent their weekends bowling or attending sporting events, just like any other group of friends. After the game, the men stopped at a convenience store in Chico for snacks.
This was their last confirmed sighting. They were driving Jack Madruga's turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego. The planned route home would have taken them on familiar highways, a roughly 50-mile journey. But for reasons still unknown, they deviated dramatically. Instead of heading south towards Yuba City, they drove east, deep into the treacherous, snow-covered roads of the Plumas National Forest.
A decision that would seal their fate.
When the men didn't return home, their families and caregivers immediately grew worried. This wasn't like them.
They were punctual and always communicated their plans.
Initial phone calls quickly turned into a frantic search.
A missing persons report was filed. Police began checking hospitals and known routes, but there was no sign. As days turned into a week, the fear escalated. The vast wilderness of Northern California felt enormous and indifferent to their plight, swallowing any trace of the five friends.
5 days after their disappearance, on March 23, a park ranger discovered Jack Madruga's Mercury Montego. It was found stuck in a snowdrift on an unpaved Forest Service road, deep within the Plumas National Forest. The location was incredibly remote, miles from any main road, at an elevation of over 4,000 feet. Snowdrifts were several feet deep. The car was slightly askew, suggesting it had either attempted a three-point turn or had slid. This discovery, while offering a tangible lead, only deepened the mystery of their vanishing. What was inside the car defied all logic. Uneaten fast food wrappers, candy, and soda were found on the seats, suggesting they hadn't been without sustenance. Most critically, the car keys were still in the ignition. Moreover, blankets, warm clothing, and even a full tank of gas were available. The vehicle, though stuck, could have been easily freed with a push or by digging out the snow. But it was abandoned. Why would five men, especially in sub-freezing temperatures, leave a warm car with resources and just walk away? Even more perplexing was the direction they took. The car was found about 19 miles from the main highway. The road they were on was plowed only a few miles back down the mountain. Their logical choice for survival would have been to walk downhill, back towards the known, plowed road, towards potential help. Instead, they walked uphill, deeper into the untouched, snow-covered wilderness, away from any semblance of safety. This decision alone is one of the most confounding aspects of the entire case. It wasn't until June, 4 months after the car was found, that the first body was discovered. 4 months of snowmelt had revealed a shocking scene.
Theodore Ted Whiteher's body was found in a small, remote Forest Service trailer, about 19 miles east of the abandoned car. He was severely emaciated, having lost over 100 pounds. Despite the grim state, Whiteher appeared to have been sheltered. He was found wrapped in 8 sheets, his teeth marks on candles, suggesting a desperate attempt to find sustenance.
But where was his food, and how did he survive so long? Whiteher's condition presented a profound paradox.
While terribly starved, he was found with his watch and gold ring still on, suggesting no foul play in that regard. He had also removed his heavy hiking boots, suffering from frozen, gangrenous feet. Crucially, nearby were Ted's eyeglasses and a pen and paper.
Yet, no farewell note or explanation was ever written.
He died lying on a bed, seemingly having found a temporary refuge, but without the food needed to survive.
This only added layers to the already complex mystery.
The grim discoveries continued. Just 2 days after Whiteher was found, the bodies of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling were located, around 11 miles from the abandoned car. Their remains were scattered, indicating animal activity, but the cause of death was attributed to hypothermia. Gary Mathias's remains were found a few weeks later, another mile further, mostly bones, under a tree. Finally, Jack Hewitt's skeletal remains were discovered in February 1979, almost a year after the initial disappearance, even further away, under a dense bush. One of the most peculiar details revolved around Gary Mathias. His size 10 hiking boots, which would have been vital in the snowy conditions, were found near the abandoned car. When his body was discovered, he was wearing size 7.5 tennis shoes, later identified as belonging to Ted Whiteher. Mathias's feet were badly damaged, presumably from the cold and ill-fitting footwear. Why would he swap his proper boots for smaller, less protective shoes, especially when heading deeper into a frozen wilderness?
This act defies any rational explanation. Another unsettling detail emerged during the search for Ted Whiteher.
Jack Madruga's father, a man grief-stricken and desperate for answers, was permitted to visit the scene where Ted Whiteher's body was found. While there, he spotted a wristwatch lying on a log near the trailer. He immediately recognized it as his son Jack's watch. He told law enforcement, but they dismissed it, asserting the watch belonged to Whiteher. If Madruga's father was correct, it suggests Jack Madruga was with Whiteher at the trailer, further complicating the timeline and the movements of the group. The most widely accepted theory attributes the tragedy to misadventure, hypothermia, and disorientation. The men, being developmentally disabled, may have struggled with judgment in extreme stress.
Hypothermia can cause confusion, irrational behavior, and a phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing, where victims remove clothes feeling inexplicably hot.
This could explain why warm clothing was left in the car, or why Mathias changed shoes.
Lost, disoriented, and exposed, they succumbed to the elements.
It's a plausible, if heartbreaking, explanation for some of the events.
However, the misadventure theory doesn't explain everything.
Why would experienced drivers like Jack Madruga venture onto an obscure, unplowed forest road in a snowstorm?
Why abandon a perfectly good car with food, warmth, and keys? Why walk uphill, away from civilization?
And how did Ted Whiteher, in his severe condition, manage to survive for months in a remote trailer, seemingly without finding a significant food source, while the others perished much earlier? These questions poke significant holes in a simple, lost and confused narrative.
Could there have been outside involvement? A darker theory suggests the men were forced into the mountains.
Perhaps they witnessed something, or were the victims of a hit and run and then abducted and left in the wilderness. The lack of struggle at the car, or signs of forced entry, makes this difficult to prove. However, a local truck driver claimed he saw a car resembling the Montego, stuck in the snow, with several men and 2 women near it, early on the morning of March 19.
One man seemed agitated.
This truck driver's account introduces a major contradiction. If true, it implies either that the 5 men were accompanied by others, or that another group was involved in their initial stranding.
The police, however, discounted this witness account, citing inconsistencies. But what if this witness, despite slight discrepancies, saw something crucial? What if the men were indeed with others, and something happened that led to their being abandoned, or even pursued, deeper into the forest? It's a narrative that raises more questions than answers. Another, more speculative theory involves a rare psychological phenomenon known as shared psychotic disorder, or folie à deux. This is where a dominant individual in a close relationship transmits a delusion to another person or group. Could one of the men, perhaps in a confused or altered state, have developed a delusion, perhaps believing rescue lay uphill, or that a monster was pursuing them and the others, due to their bond and cognitive challenges, followed along? It's a tragic possibility, a collective unraveling in the face of extreme conditions. Decades have passed, but the mystery of the Yuba County Five remains stubbornly unsolved. The evidence presents a baffling paradox, a mix of seemingly rational survival attempts, like Whitehurst sheltering in the trailer, alongside utterly inexplicable decisions, such as abandoning a functional vehicle with ample resources. The lack of a clear, coherent narrative leaves us to grapple with uncomfortable uncertainties. Was it a series of tragic, misinformed choices exacerbated by their disabilities and the harsh environment, or was there something far more sinister at play? The story of the Yuba County Five is a haunting testament to how quickly an ordinary night can transform into an enduring mystery. 5 friends, who set out for a simple basketball game, vanished into the vast, silent mountains, leaving behind a trail of perplexing clues and fragmented answers. Their families endured unimaginable grief, forever wondering what truly happened during those fateful days in March 1978. Their story serves as a stark reminder that some questions may never be fully answered, leaving us only to speculate what really led to the tragic disappearance of these 5 men.